Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NFL Week 16 episode of the Bacon Bets podcast. The road to 272 bets, unfortunately, marches on, but fortunately is going to be coming to an end here in 3 short weeks because it has been a disaster. Once again, a losing week. Once again, not only just a losing week, but a terrible, terrible week with my picks this past week. Of course, I had bad week. I tried to reverse my picks to the opposite, to the Costanza method last week. Then all my picks went 7-7, which meant going opposite didn't work. And now as soon as I'm back to my previous method, I now have a 5-11 record this week or a 6-10 record, depending on how Monday Night Football goes tonight with the Steelers and Dolphins. If the Steelers win and cover, I'll be 5-11, or no, 6-10. And if they don't win, they don't cover, I'll be 5-11. Wow. How nice is that? Now, I did hit Vikings plus 260 on Sunday. That would have been really nice, but at this point, it doesn't really fucking matter because this entire season has been a fucking shit show. No matter what I do, I lose. And I lose a lot. 5-6 years, where at the end of those 5 or 6, that 5 or 6 year run, I was profitable. It has come down. This year, it has come down in a bad, bad way. Let's recap some picks from last week. I hit the over in the Commanders-Giants. I hit the Chargers to cover. I hit the Saints to cover. I hit the Rams to cover. And then I hit Vikings outright. There were 5 big favorites last week. The 4 favorites that covered, I was on the underdog. The one underdog that covered, was the one favorite that I was on to cover. Cardinals plus 10, lost. Raiders plus 12.5, lost. Jets plus 12.5, lost. Titans plus 12.5, lost by a point on a last-second meaningless field goal. Seahawks minus 11.5, lost. So, I was on the wrong side of every single big spread last week somehow. I don't know how that's possible. Patriots were up 21-0. They blew it. Lost that one. My Browns upset pick was never in it. Browns plus 340, lost by 28 points. It has been a comedy of errors from start to finish this NFL season, but the good news is there's only 3 weeks left. The better news is you people should be happy about how bad this season has been in the NFL for me. I don't want any messages telling me how much my picks suck. Take the opposite of what I'm doing. I've proven I can't fade myself. It's not possible. The Costanza method didn't work. So my gift to you is the next 3 weeks, you're going to be able to just take the opposite of my bets and you're going to win good money. Go ahead and pay for some gifts. Pay for some Christmas gifts. No matter what I do, I can't win. So go ahead, listen, get my picks, and take the opposite. This isn't me overreacting to a bad week or a bad month or a bad 2 months. It is now 15 straight weeks that I suck at betting on the NFL. Hopefully next year I get to reset. Hopefully next year I'll at least have, if I do have a losing week, just a small losing season. But this year it's a disaster. So take advantage while you can, my friends. I do this for you. 3 weeks. That's 48 games left for me to bet on. I have 48 losers left to give you before the 2025 edition of the Road to 272 Bets is over. So let's take advantage of it. You'd be stupid not to. Let's get into it. Let's get into the NFL Week 16 episode of the Bacon Bets podcast. The road to 272 bets, unfortunately, fucking marches on. All right, let's start with Thursday Night Football. It is probably the game of the year, definitely the game of the week. Seahawks-Rams, arguably the 2 best teams in the NFL, and the 2 teams who are fighting for the number 1 seed in the NFC. Not only the top spot in the NFC West, but the number 1 seed in the NFC and the bye week and the home field advantage that goes along with it. So a huge, huge game in terms of determining the NFC playoff picture. Now, when these 2 teams played about a little over a month ago, I was on the Seahawks, and despite Sam Darnold throwing 4 interceptions, they had a chance to win the game, but then they missed a game-winning field goal. Now, to be fair, that game-winning field goal, I believe, was like 62 yards, so it certainly wasn't a chip shot. But they had a chance to win the game. But this time around, I'm going to flip. I'm going to take the Rams this time. Rams minus 110 in a pick'em game. It comes down to the fact it's not that I don't believe in Sam Darnold, that he can win a big game. I think he can. But until he does, I don't feel comfortable betting on him. I mean, his worst performance was in his biggest game so far against this Rams defense, a very good Rams defense. And it is worth noting that the Seahawks offense has regressed lately. They're down to 9th in offensive DVOA, 12th in EPA per play. They were a top 5 offense, at least a top 10 offense for the majority of the season. Those numbers have fallen off a little bit lately. They weren't able to do much this past week against a very, very mediocre Colts defense. So that, kind of shows something. The Rams are just more experienced. Matt Stafford is more experienced in big games. Sean McVay is the more experienced coach in big games. And just because his game is in Seattle, don't necessarily just go ahead and bet on the Seahawks, because the Seahawks have kind of been a much better road team this season than what they usually are. That whole, 13th or 12th man home field advantage the Seahawks used to have, that doesn't really exist anymore. So let's go ahead and take the Rams minus 110 here. I know Devontae Adams is out, but their offense is really hitting their stride even without him. I think they'll be okay. The Seahawks offense has regressed, and until Sam Darnold delivers in a big game, I'm not going to trust him. Now, I want to make it clear. I'm not saying he can't. I'm not saying he won't. But in terms of my money, I've lost money betting on him in big games in the past. I need to step back, take the opposite until Sam Darnold proves he can get the job done in a big spot. You won't find any Sam Darnold believers as big as I am, but I need to see it in a big game. Show me something, Sam. Show me something on Thursday. Now let's move ahead. We have Saturday games, I think. 2 Saturday games this week, right? Yeah. Eagles and Commanders are the first one. I'm going to take the Eagles -6, -102 in this one. I should have saw this coming last week. I know I bet against them, but I shouldn't have. I should have backed them, because even though they were 0-2 in the games leading into last week, they were actually showing some positive signs from a metric standpoint, and that is been further iterated after this past week. They're now first in the NFL in net yards per play over each team's last 3 games, plus 1.9, despite being 1-2 in that stretch. So the Eagles might be quietly hitting their stride. Maybe it's time to buy a little bit of stock in the Eagles, maybe in some futures odds. And it's mainly because their defense has turned into one of the most dominant units in the entire NFL, and their offense maybe hit their stride. It was against the Raiders, but still the Raiders defense is not that bad. So we'll see if that Raiders or the Eagles offense can continue that successful play this week, especially when they're taking on a Commanders defense that absolutely stinks. One of the worst defenses in the NFL, bottom 5, bottom 4, bottom 3, and a lot of different metrics. 31st in opponent EPA per play, 27th in opponent success rate. They allow the second most yards per play at 6.1. So I'm going to keep the Eagles as long as we can keep this under a touchdown. I got it -6, -102. I think it's up to -6.5 now. But I'm going to trust the Eagles to win and cover against the Commanders on Saturday. Saturday night, we have the NFC North battle between the Packers and Bears. Now, I know a lot of you Bears fans have reached out to me after I finally backed them 2 weeks ago. You begged me, Ian, get off the Bears, try to fade them again. So I did. And then the Bears won by 28 points against the Browns. So you're probably thinking, Ian, please continue to bet against the Bears, especially in a big game against the Packers this weekend. Well, I got good news for you. I was going to bet the Bears. I was going to say, listen, they continue to find ways to create turnovers. They actually have been playing better the past 4 or 5 weeks. So I was going to take the Bears, and then I saw the spread, and it was 1.5. I thought we were going to get like 2.5, maybe a field goal with the Bears. 1.5? Can't do it. Give me the Packers. I'm back to fading the Bears, baby. You're welcome, Bears fans. That is my Christmas gift to you. I will continue to bet against the Bears. I think I've now been on the wrong side of Bears games 12 straight weeks. So let's be on the wrong side of the Bears again. Let me actually see this. When was the last time I was on the right side of a Bears game? Bears scores. Let's look up some games here. Last week, wrong side. Packers, wrong side. Eagles, wrong side. Steelers, wrong side. Or maybe that was that wasn't a push, was it? I was on the wrong side with the Steelers. I was on the wrong side. The Vikings didn't. Maybe I won that bet on the Vikings to cover. Now I'm starting to forget what my bets were for these games. I was definitely on the right side with the Ravens back on October 26th, so maybe that's the last time. I'm betting against them again. I did a fun little thing on rbsdm.com, which is my favorite stats website. I looked at the Bears defense and I excluded plays that resulted in a turnover, which is a fun tool you can use. And if you take away turnovers that the Bears have forced, their defense all of a sudden ranks 28th in opponent EPA per play, 26th in opponent success rate. So bottom 5 defense if you take away turnovers. So the question is, can they continue to turn the ball over? If you think they can, then maybe continue to bet on the Bears, because they do lead the NFL in average turnover differential of plus 1.4. It's hard to lose games every week if you have an average turnover differential of plus 1.4. Now, most people think that turnovers are a little bit more luck than anything else, especially when it comes to takeaways. So that would have me concerned if I was a Bears fan. You kind of have to keep forcing turnovers. If you don't, your defense is going to get torched sooner rather than later. And let's also forget the Packers. I know they won and covered against the Bears 2 weeks ago. I understand that was in Lambeau, and I understand it was a tied game until late. But yards per play in that game, it was the Packers 6.5, Bears 4.6. The Packers gained 1.9 more yards per snap of the football than the Bears did. That gives me a lot of faith in the Packers this week. I know Micah Parsons is out. That sucks. But still, don't care. It's not like the Bears have Micah Parsons. Give me the Packers. Minus 1.5. I will fade the Chicago Bears once again. Bengals, Dolphins. We still have the Dolphins to play tonight. So hopefully there won't be any significant injuries, and which would result in some significant line movements. If it stays pretty much the same, I have bet on the Cincinnati Bengals on the money line. Slight underdogs here. Don't worry, I got a bigger underdog coming up later. But I am taking the Bengals plus 102. And I hope maybe if the Steelers win and cover tonight, maybe you'll get actually a worse odds on the Bengals. Maybe the line will move in my favor with this one. I know the Dolphins have won 4 straight games. If they beat the Steelers tonight, it'll be 5 straight games. But still, let's talk about how bad their defense is. Still a very, very bad defense. They allow 6.8 yards per pass attempt, 23rd in opponent dropback EPA, 29th in opponent dropback success rate. I know the Bengals are out of the mix, but they still have Joe Burrow. They still have Jamar Chase. I do think they'll be able to torch this Dolphins defense. And a huge sell high spot on the Dolphins, especially if they beat the Steelers tonight. Come on. It wasn't that long ago that we were all talking about this team is imploding. Their wins heading into tonight, I guess against the Bills, that was an impressive win, but then Commanders, Saints, Jets, not exactly a killer's row of teams. They're probably not as bad as they were early in the season, certainly not as good as they have been recently. I think the Bengals, with their passing attack, can beat them. I don't think Tua Tagovailoa and company can do enough offensively to keep up with the Bengals offense. I will take the Bengals plus 102 against the Miami Dolphins. The Kansas City Chiefs against the Titans. Now, I complained last week that I was out of my survivor pools before I was able to use my trump card of the Chiefs against the Titans in week 16. If I was still alive in Survivor, I'd be pissed. My entire strategy of Survivor this year was to wait till week 16, keep the Chiefs until week 16, and then use them against the worst team in the NFL. And then, of course, the Chiefs are eliminated from the playoffs, and Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL. So the spread's all the way down to 3. Do I want to bet the Chiefs minus 3 with no Patrick Mahomes? Yes. Gardner Minshew's their backup. He'll play this weekend. He's very capable. So the biggest question mark to me is not quarterback. It's just like, is Chris Jones going to play, and is he going to try? Is Travis Kelce going to play? Is he going to try? Or are we going to see a team that is so used to going to the playoffs, so used to going on deep playoff runs, now that they're out of it, they'd be so demoralized that they don't even really put an effort forward? That's possible. It's possible. But we're still talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. We're still talking about Andy Reid. We're still talking about Chris Jones, hopefully, going up against arguably the worst team in the NFL, the Tennessee Titans. Gardner Minshew is a capable backup. He can especially throw the ball against some bad defenses, and the Titans are a bad defense. I think this is a little bit of an overreaction to the Chiefs being out of the playoffs and Patrick Mahomes being out. I think the correct line in this game is Chiefs minus 4.5. So with that at 3, I will take the Chiefs minus 3, minus 113 against the Tennessee Titans. The Vikings and the Giants, I will take the Vikings minus 2.5. Credit to J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy has looked pretty good in 2 straight games now. Now, I do want it to be clear, my hate on J.J. McCarthy early in the season was not directed at J.J. McCarthy. It was directed on the Vikings fans who were victory lapping that they had the next Joe Montana after one good quarter in week 1 against the Bears, and really even before the season started, before he even took an NFL snap. Vikings fans were parading the streets. And still now, after 2 straight games, they're back on it. They didn't learn their lesson. Which that in turn, the arrogance of Vikings fans make me want to cheer against J.J. McCarthy. I saw a tweet today. J.J. McCarthy is tied for the league lead in big throw percentage with Matt Stafford. Okay. He also has the 3rd highest bad throw percentage. So sure, he makes a couple of big throws. He certainly makes a lot of bad throws too. A lot of bad throws. But once again, my hate was never directed at he might end up being a fine NFL quarterback. But Vikings fans, you're getting a little crazy. And instead of admitting you're wrong, you've doubled down. Bold strategy. I will be on your Vikings this week, though, taking on a Giants defense that sucks, especially when it comes to stopping the run. The worst run defense in the NFL. I think of target Aaron Jones this week and some prop bets maybe. I think he's going to have a big week against this Giants defense. And I think the Vikings blitz packages are going to confuse Jackson Dart. So I'll take the Vikings minus 2.5, minus 118. Buccaneers, Panthers. Panthers really had the NFC South in their grasp and then let it slip away, didn't they? Losing to the Saints. Give me the Panthers plus 3, minus 112 on their home field against the Buccaneers in this one. I don't think enough people have fully accepted in their head how bad the Buccaneers are. I think a lot of people are thinking, oh, the Buccaneers, good team, but they've had some injury luck. Things, they'll pick it up and they'll still end up winning the division. I don't know if that's true. Heading into Week 16, the Buccaneers ranked 29th in net yards per play, 26th in success rate, 21st in opponent success rate. Panthers outrank them in all 3 categories. And stop talking like the Buccaneers are the only team in football who has injuries. Every team has injuries. I know the Buccaneers might have more than some, but they're actually getting healthier on offense. And they're still losing. They had Mike Evans back, still lost to the Falcons. Baker Mayfield has been truly a horrific quarterback. Now, if you want to blame the injury, sure. Justin Herbert seems to still be throwing the ball well with an injury. I think every quarterback plays through an injury. Since Week 8, Baker Mayfield, 3rd last in the NFL amongst all starting quarterbacks. So there have been 35 quarterbacks since Week 8 who have thrown the ball at least 100 times. Baker Mayfield ranks 33rd out of 35 quarterbacks in EPA plus CPOE, expected points added plus completion percentage over expected. The only 2 quarterbacks who have been worse than Baker Mayfield in that metric are J.J. McCarthy and Shedeur Sanders. That's the company Baker Mayfield's in right now. That's how bad he's been playing. Blame the injuries all you want, but the numbers are the numbers, and you have a team that's this bad with the quarterback playing this bad on the road in a divisional game, laying a field goal. No, thank you. I'll pass. Give me the Panthers plus 3, minus 112. Jets and Saints. You have 2 really bad teams, but one at least has a fighting. They're fighting. So I'll take the Saints minus 4 in this one. Their defense has actually been a pretty solid unit. They've actually done a very good job of stopping the run. And what team gets the highest percentage of their offensive yards from the running game? The Jets. I believe it's 60% of their offensive yards come from running the football. Now they're taking on, let's see if I can bring up their EPA numbers. They're taking on a very good run defense in the Saints. I'm just trying to bring this up. Should have had this in my notes, but I didn't. I think they're 8th in opponent rush EPA is my guess. 7th. 7th in opponent rush EPA. 14th in opponent rush success rate. They're a very good defense at stopping the run, and if you can stop the Jets from running the football, you're going to beat them. So I'll take the Saints -4. Also, Tyler Shuck hasn't been bad. Hasn't been great. He's around middle of the pack in a lot of metrics, but he also runs with the football at times, which is a nice added weapon. So I'll lay the points to the Saints, -4, -113. Then we'll move on to the Chargers and the Cowboys. This is my only total bet of the week. I will take the under 49.5 between the Chargers and the Cowboys here. Chargers on a win streak, but it's not been because of their offense. In fact, their defense has turned into an elite unit. They were at the start of the year. The middle of the season, they kind of had a rough patch, but they're back to being very, very, very good. 9th in defensive DVOA, 4th in opponent EPA per play, 6th in opponent success rate. But more importantly, they're top 5 in every pass defense metric. And how do you stop the Cowboys? You got to stop the pass, because that's where the Cowboys' biggest strength is. The Chargers' offense, 19th in points per game, 22.5 points per game, only 16 points per game over their last 3 weeks. Justin Herbert has battled through that injury to his non-throwing hand, but they're not as explosive of an offense as they can be. They're relying on the running game a little bit more than they have earlier in the season. So with a total at 49.5 in a game that involves a team that is kind of, right now at this point in the season, all defense and no offense. Now I understand the Cowboys are all offense, no defense. They're the opposite, but I think the Chargers defense can slow down the Cowboys offense, and I think the Chargers offense not going to struggle against the Cowboys offense or Cowboys defense, but I don't think they're going to put up like 28 points. So I'll take the under 49.5 between the Chargers and the Cowboys. Moving on, we got the Browns and the Bills. I guess I'm back to betting on this fucking shitty-ass fucking football team. I will take the Browns +10 even money against the Bills. If we believe that styles make fights in the NFL, then as bad as the Browns are and as bad as Shedeur Sanders has been, the Browns do have the stylistic advantage in this game because their biggest strength is stopping the run. 3rd in opponent rush EPA, 1st in opponent rush success rate. They're only allowing 3.9 yards per carry. Now they take on a Bills team who ranks 4th in the NFL in offensive yards gain percentage. So 41.58% of their offensive yards gained come from running the football. That's the 4th highest mark in the NFL. We have shown, this has kind of been the thing with the Bills, if you can slow down their rush attack, you can keep their games close against them. Their lack of talent at receiver ends up hurting them. And the Bills can't stop the run. So running the ball and stopping the run is key for everything about any Bills games, and I think the Browns can both stop the run and run the ball. Now, I'm not going to say the Browns are going to pull off the upset, but a 10-point spread, I'll take it at even money. Browns +10, +100. Let's move on to the Falcons and the Cardinals. I will lay the 2.5 points with the Atlanta Falcons, -2.5, -105. I'm back on my bullshit with the Falcons. They're out of the playoffs already, but I'm kind of bought back in on this team. Now, I'm a little bit worried that the Falcons are going to win enough games to close out the season that Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson will keep their job. I hope that's not the case. You put Kirk Cousins under center. You don't make him play pistol, and wow, look at that, Kirk Cousins is effective. Who would have thought? Just about everyone on the internet for the past year. Play action, that's where he's at his best. That's where Kirk Cousins has been at his whole career. Last year, he never ran play action. This year, now that he's in, you're running play action out of under center, and guess what? He's having success, even without Drake London. Falcons, better in the record, 10th in the league in net yards per play. That's between the Texans and Ravens. So they should be in a good spot to beat a Cardinals team that's 24th in both net yards per play and DVOA. Let's trust Kirk. Kirky boy. Kirky boy. Falcons -2.5, -105. Jaguars and the Broncos, the Fraud Bowl. Now, hand up. I got to take accountability for when I'm wrong for takes. And I've been wrong about a lot of things this season. I've been wrong about a lot of things. 2 of those things is about both the Jaguars and the Broncos. I call it the Fraud Bowl, but is it that big of a fraud bowl? The Jaguars keep beating teams, and so do the Broncos. But with that being said, I don't think either of these teams have what it takes to make a deep playoff run. Maybe I'm wrong. I certainly probably will be. But I do, if I had to pick a team that I trust more, I would say that I trust the Broncos a little bit more. Especially at home. They've been a lot better at home than on the road this season. Their defense, in terms of DVOA, their defense is better than the Jaguars' defense. The Broncos' offense is better than the Jaguars' offense. So I just think they're better in a lot of areas, and I'm thinking Trevor Lawrence on the road in Denver against the Broncos secondary, and to me that sounds like a disaster. So I'll lay the points with the Broncos. A team that's been very good at home taking on, like, part of me still believes the Jaguars are frauds. I don't think the Broncos are frauds anymore. So I guess I'll back the Broncos. Broncos -3, -105 against the Jags. Funny story, I was doing a TV spot last year, and I was making a pick for a game, and I was breaking down the pick, and I capped it off by saying, I wanted to say fade the Jags, but those two words mushed into one, and I said the start of fade and the second half of Jags. So that wasn't good. That wasn't good to say that on TV. Quickly correct myself, but it's the damage had been done. I won't say the word I said, but you can piece those two together. The start of fade and the ending of Jags. Not my brightest moment, my friends. Not my brightest moment. All right. Steelers, Lions. Steelers still left to play tonight, obviously. So we could see some potential line movement depending on how tonight's game goes. But I will back the Lions -7. One of my few winning picks this past week was the Rams. The reason was that I was on the Rams was because I was thinking of Matt Stafford, the MVP, and their passing offense going up against a banged-up Lions secondary, one that's missing Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch and Terry and Arnold and some depth pieces. Well, now the Steelers don't have the facilities. You don't have the facilities for that, mate. They don't have the facilities. They don't have the ability. They don't have the talent, the skill to take advantage of the Lions' injured secondary. Aaron Rodgers ain't throwing for 300 yards. Tell you that much. Meanwhile, the Lions, I know they're on the outside looking into the playoff picture, but I still believe in this Lions team quite a bit. Third in the NFL in overall DVOA. Fifth in net yards per play. Seventh in EPA. This is my favorite analogy that I talk about every week. But the Steelers are the Mario of the NFL. They don't do anything great. They don't do anything terrible. Their stats are even across the board. They're average at everything. It's like picking Mario. It's like picking Mario in Mario Kart. It's like picking Mario in Smash Bros. Nobody wants to do it because they're not fun, because they're just average at everything. That's the Steelers. That's why I don't like this team. Lions are fun. Lions do a lot of things well. Give me the Lions -7, -105. Moving on to the Raiders and the Texans. This is an ugly bet. I bet against the Texans last week against the Cardinals because I didn't have faith that they could win by margin with their offense. Same reason I'm back in the Raiders. Buy low, sell high, I guess. Buying low on the Raiders, as low as you could possibly buy any team. Selling pretty high on the Texans. The 14.5 point spread is wild. Even the big spreads last week didn't get that high. 13.5, I think, was the highest. 14.5 to win by more than 2 touchdowns is crazy. And that leaves a lot of room for some backdoor covers. A lot of room. Texans offense is still not good enough for me to think they can cover the spread. 22nd in offensive DVOA, 18th in EPA per play, 29th in success rate. Scoring 40 points against the Cardinals isn't enough to convince me they can cover the spread. Now, I know the Texans covered the spread last week against the Cardinals, and I know the Raiders did not cover their spread against the Eagles last week. Wasn't even close. With that being said, I still have to look at the full picture of both teams, and when I look at the full picture, this is a lot of points to lay on a Texans team who was a bottom 10 offense. Give me the Raiders. Plus 14.5, -110. Patriots and Ravens. We're almost done. Patriots and Ravens. I'll take the Patriots plus 2.5 in that one, plus 102 against the Ravens. Patriots defense has some issues. I've kind of called it, even though I was on the wrong side last week. But they're still a very elite offense. Drake May is the most efficient quarterback in the NFL, and the Ravens just still aren't the Ravens. I still think the betting market is treating the Ravens like they're the elite Ravens that we expected at the start of the year. I don't care that they shut out the Bengals last week. The Ravens are still 14th in DVOA, 19th in EPA per play, 14th in opponent EPA per play. They're kind of an average team. And who they lose to 2 weeks ago? The Steelers, another average team. So everyone's like scared of the big bad Ravens, like watch out. Nobody wants to face the Ravens in the playoffs. I don't think that's true. Lamar Jackson's still not himself. The defense is average at best. I'll take the 2.5 points with the New England Patriots in a little bit of a bounce back spot. Then we got Monday Night Football. You might be saying, Ian, you said you had another upset coming, but where is it? Here it is, baby. Give me the Colts. Plus 225 against the San Francisco 49ers on Monday Night Football. Phillip Rivers returned to action, 44 years old, against the Seahawks, and I don't think he's getting the credit that he deserves. Yes, his arm did not look as strong as it was when he was in his prime. But let's not forget, he was pretty efficient against who a lot of people think is the best defense in the NFL. Don't forget what the Seahawks defense did to Max Brosmer. Bad. This Seahawks defense is beaten up on some bad quarterbacks this season. Phillip Rivers almost won that game. Lost on a long field goal. Now Phillip Rivers gets to take on a 49ers defense that has been really bad, still banged up by injuries, have not gotten healthy. A 49ers defense whose secondary has been terrible. I want to see where they rank in opponent yards per pass down. 18th, 6.6. What about opponent drop back EPA? 24th. That was opponent drop back success rate. 26th. They're a bottom 10 pass defense. This is a much easier matchup for Phillip Rivers with another week of preparation. And don't forget, because I think people have, and last week's close loss to the Seahawks hasn't reminded people, the Colts weren't good for 2/3 of the season because of Daniel Jones. They were good because of an efficient offense, Jonathan Taylor, a solid defense, and a good head coach. Daniel Jones being out does not all of a sudden make the Colts team a bad team. If you don't think the Colts would have been 5.5 point underdogs to the 49ers with Daniel Jones, I don't know if there necessarily should be 5.5 point underdogs with Phillip Rivers. Truly. Is that crazy to say? Maybe not. I think this is a massive sell high spot on a 49ers team who has had an unbelievably easy schedule. Since they lost to the Rams 42-26 on November 9th, their opponents have been the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Browns, and the Titans. Not good. I think the Colts pull off this upset. I'll take the Colts on the money line plus 225. So those are my best bets for this week. Let's do a quick recap. I like Rams minus 110 against the Seahawks, Eagles -6, minus 102 against the Commanders, the Packers minus 1.5 against the Bears, the Bengals plus 102 against the Dolphins, the Chiefs -3, minus 113 against the Titans, the Vikings minus 2.5, minus 118 against the Giants, the Panthers +3, minus 112 against the Buccaneers, the Saints -4, minus 113 against the Jets, Chargers, Cowboys, under 49.5, minus 105. Browns, +10, even money against the Bills. Falcons, -2.5, minus 107 against the Cardinals. Broncos, -3, minus 105 against the Jaguars. Lions, -7, minus 105 against the Steelers. Raiders, +14.5 against the Texans. Patriots, +2.5, plus 102 against the Ravens. Colts, +225 on the money line against the San Francisco 49ers. My best bets from last week went either 1-4 or 2-3, depending on the Steelers' outcome tonight. My best bets for this coming week: Eagles -6 against the Commanders, Panthers +3 against the Buccaneers, Broncos -3 against the Jaguars, Raiders +14.5 against the Texans, and then for the sake of pick'em pools, Colts plus 5.5 against 49ers. Teaser of the week won last week. Teaser of the week. This whole podcast should just be teaser of the week. And I'd be up a lot of money this year. Patriots plus 7.5 against the Bills, so they did fail to win, but the teaser leg came through. And Saints plus 8.5 against the Panthers. That was a 2-leg, 6-point teaser. That won. This week, my teaser of the week, I'm going to tease the Lions down from -7 to -1 against the Steelers. That crosses key numbers of 7, 6, and 3. And then the Bengals up to plus 7.5 from plus 1.5 against the Dolphins. So that covers the opposite way, 3, 6, and 7. So Lions -1, Bengals plus 7.5. That is my 2-leg, 6-point teaser of the week. This has been the NFL Week 16 episode of the Bacon Bets podcast. The road to 272 bets marches on. Best of luck. Fade these picks. Take the opposite. Make money. I'll talk to you all next week.